So we have 2 hours. We're going to break 2 hours into 2 sessions. So in the first hour, I'm going to show you, how to write a, data professional resume that will get interviews. And in the second session, Xiaohua, the CEO of WeCloudData, will join me, and we will talk about, the mentorship and how the mentors can help the mentee to not only, get interviews, but pass interviews. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. My name is Eric. I'm responsible for the data analytics and business intelligence program. So I will go through, different kinds of data roles, but I will focus particularly on DA and BI jobs, because that's the area I'm most familiar with. Throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to use chat, and I will try to, juggle and try to answer your questions as we move forward. So first of all, I think you can see the picture I put on screen. Different kinds of data jobs. We've got this question a lot. What is the difference between DA, DS, DE, and NLE? I think if you look at the, how do we call this? This is a radar chart or a spider chart. Basically, you can see the different skills required to perform the role, to do the job. And from the central point, and that is 0 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, you can see how much emphasis we place on different skills for a particular role. So just for your convenience, let's start with DA, and then we will go clockwise. And if you look at DA, just look at the skills that scored 5 points. And over here, you see data visualization is definitely important. And storytelling, data visualization and storytelling, and business insight and reporting. And this is a little bit different from the traditional view that a data analyst, all they do is probably running queries and making report. Maybe 15 years ago that was the case, but now with technology, your scope of work and responsibility got expanded. The ultimate purpose of this role is really to help the business, use data to answer questions, solve problems, support decisions, and create value for the business and customers. To do that, it involves data visualization, storytelling. So this is just the most effective way of communicating the insights back to the business. And the business insight, obviously, it requires the analyst to have certain level of domain knowledge. So I think it is a role that you will need to combine business and data and communication. So business domain knowledge is definitely critical. And reporting, this is the traditional view. So you will run queries, extract data from different sources, and then make the data usable and consumable. So let's move to data scientists. And once again, I'd like you to look at the skills that score 5 points. So over here, you see experimentation. And those of you who are familiar with data science, you can probably think of A/B testing, right? And control and test group. And then you treat control and test group with different strategies, maybe A and B. And just to see, holding everything else constant, which strategy works better. So this is just one best way to determine, which strategy works better, or what works and what doesn't work. And as you can see, data scientists in the role becomes more specialized. So this has, I think, a deep level of specialization. For DA, this requires you go horizontally, and you can develop a professional range. Whereas data scientists, you will need to go deep, build some depths, and to achieve certain level of fluency or specialization. So statistics are absolutely important, in order for you to really understand the algorithm and to do predictive modeling or machine learning. Machine learning modeling. So this is more of a technique rather than the theory. So going to data engineering or data engineer, the two skills that score 5 points, as you can tell, one is database and the other one is data pipeline. I want to use the analogy. Data engineering is more like plumbing, and so you're like a plumber. You need to build the pipeline so data will flow. Years ago, we still had the IT process. I think most of the time is still batch. It's a batch process, and sometimes you hear end of day processing. So you will have to wait until maybe midnight, when people go home and everything goes quiet, and then you run some batch jobs. But data engineering is completely different. So this is a real-time continuous. You will need to build pipeline, and you collect data and you perform ETL, and then you use the data to train the model while the model is making real-time predictions. So this is more about building the pipeline, the workflow, the infrastructure. So I think you start to see the difference, right? So now let's go to machine learning engineering. So this role, let's look at the skills that score 5 points. And you see machine learning modeling as well. So you see some overlapping with data science. And you have deployment, and you also have machine learning operations. So deployment and operations. So many of you probably have heard of DevOps. So it's development and operations combined. Two stages of the same process rolled into one. And organizationally, and it's in the same department, and you all report to the same boss. So machine learning engineer, your job focuses a lot more on deployment, to actually execute or implement the model. Data scientists develop the model, and then machine learning engineer, you execute it, you implement the model. Not only implement, you need to also provide support and maintenance. If there is any issue, you will need to follow up and follow through until it is resolved. So hopefully you can see the difference between the 4 rows. Any questions before I close this page and move on to the resume?
No questions.
No questions? Okay. So I assume that this is clear. So let me just close this one. All right. So today I'm going to show you how we can leverage OpenAI API to build your resume. To start off, ChatGPT, or you can do this through programming, using API endpoint. They are useful to a certain extent, but I still hold the view that this will not be able to replace the role of a good mentor, or maybe your own hard work. And once again, prompt engineering is about how you can design high quality prompt so you can receive high quality completion. If I were to speak English, you will need to learn how to ask high quality question in order for ChatGPT or OpenAI to generate high quality answer. So in future, I don't think AI is going to replace human, but imagine the human who doesn't know how to work with AI probably will be threatened by the humans who know how to work with AI. So the threat doesn't come from AI itself, it comes from the people who know how to work with it. So if you know this, you probably want to sit on the other side of the table and try to learn how to work with the machine. I personally believe it's always the best combination. If you learn the machine language so you can work with AI, or nowadays, AI is trying to learn the natural language so that you can work with AI to some extent. But still, I think API endpoint is definitely more powerful if you know how to use it. Just to start off, I want to show you just a few techniques in prompt engineering. There are two principles and a number of tactics. The first principle is to write clear and specific instructions. So specific is always better than general and generic questions. And clarity is important. If you ask questions with high level of ambiguity, and it's very likely you will not get a good answer. So under this principle, you can use delimiter to clearly indicate which part, of your input is actually the question. And we're going to use that. We use backtick, okay, to indicate the part that we want to use, or maybe I want AI to improve. And the second one is to ask for a structured output. You can provide format. So AI will provide the answer in the exact format. Sometimes you can tell AI, I don't want a long answer. Please give me a short answer. Well, once again, short is not very clear. So you can indicate the number of words or maybe a number of characters. Ask the model to check whether conditions are satisfied. This is, I'm not going to use this for today, but this one has several use cases you can try out later on. I'm going to use few shot, so prompting. And to work with OpenAI, it's not enough just to tell the AI. You have to show AI. What do you mean, right? So give AI the instruction, but follow up with one or a few examples. That is just one best way for AI to understand you and then provide a quality answer. The other principle is to give AI or the model time to think. So you can indicate steps required to complete the task and just provide certain structure so AI will give you the answer in the exact sequence. And the second, instruct the model to work out its own solution before rushing to a conclusion. This is a technique or tactic we're not going to use today. So first of all, I think we will need to import two libraries and OS OpenAI. Obviously, OpenAI is important. If you want to try this later on, it's pretty easy. You just need to do pip install OpenAI. This is very, very easy. And you can I use environment variable to hide my API key. Usually you don't show your API key. That's just like your credentials, user ID and password, right? So I'm going to run this. This will run, and this is the core. This is a function, obviously, so you can define a function, and I named the function as get completion, and the input is a prompt, okay? And then this will return, so the completion, and a few parameters. The messages you can specify the structure. So the row is user, and then the content is the prompt, okay? And then the response. So you're going to call the OpenAI library, and then this particular, function. And then we will use the GPT 3.5. So if I pay more, I can use GPT 4. And we know that it's a lot more powerful. And over here, just give me a second to admit, several people who are trying to get in. Okay, and the messages, are the messages. So what is the temperature? Temperature is the degree of randomness. So if I were to speak English, the value is between 0 and 1. And the extreme of 0 means I am very, very clear on what I want. Not random, be very, very unique. Okay. Whereas the other extreme is, let's just try a few random, answers just to get the variety. You can ask AI to be more creative. So over here, I really, really want the unique answer. So I put 0. Okay, so then you can return the response, and then you pick the first one, from the message. I'm going to run this. Okay, so as I said before, I will focus on data analyst jobs. Oh, wait a minute. So I meant to show you the other one first. No, forgive me. So let me just show this one first. So this is the resume builder, and this is what is it? Oh, this is prepare for interview based on job description. So let me show you the resume builder first. But the first part is the same. So let me run this and run this. Okay. A person's resume is, appears to be the most difficult type of, writing. But in my personal view, it is a bit undertaking. But if you were to take the time and break it down, it's just, several writing blocks, right? If you break it down, you will have what? You will have skills, and you will have professional experience or work experience. And our students, every single one of them, to complement the professional experience, and all of them have project experience. 2 reasons. Number one, we have students who do not have work experience or very little work experience. So obviously, to build a strong and competitive profile, and they need to supplement, the quote unquote work experience with very, very strong project experience. And for career switchers, maybe their past work experience is less relevant. So they also need project experience to not only complement, sometimes you want to supersede. That's the reason why we ask our students to put project experience on top of their professional work experience. Okay, so you have skills, you have project experience, you have work experience, and then you have education. It's really, really simple. You have full blocks of writing. So skills, obviously is a very important part because all data roles are somewhat technical. And if you come from a non-STEM background, and if you want to appear technical, I think your skills section is super important. And skills goes, immediately below your name and your phone, email, and probably a link to your portfolio. So if someone reads your resume and spend only 10 seconds, and skills are the part they will glance. They probably will not go into details. So I'm going to show you this just example. Please, stay with me. I know this is boring, but let me try to make it interesting. So over here, you see 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 6 bullet points. And I highly recommend that you have 6 to 8 bullet points. And it's a combination of hard skills and soft skills, and data and business, and sometimes even, personality or, relationship building or communication. So over here, I just want you to look at the category, the heading. I'm not going to bold this, but I want you to look at everything before colon. So you see programming, and then you see database systems. So for instance, SQL versus MySQL. And, this is a database, and this is a language to communicate with that database. It's quite different. So SQL is both a database and a language to communicate with that database. So we have programming, we have database systems, and those of you who come with the stats background, and you probably want to add this as well. And not so much as a data scientist, but you still need to learn to some extent, stats and machine learning. And then this is the important part, data visualization and story time, right? Data visualization. And this is the reporting part, data analysis and reporting. And then this is business development life cycle. But once again, the skills have many different ways to really write and rewrite. Everybody probably will have some variation in your own case. But in a nutshell, I think you will see data, and then this is business intelligence development. There's not that much, business domain knowledge versus somebody, if you come from business, finance, and maybe economics background, you may want to put another bullet, or maybe replace stats, machine learning with business domain knowledge, something like that. Okay, so let's just go into the details. So for programming, we highly recommend that you learn SQL and Python. Not so much SAS. I'm going to get rid of SAS. So SQL is really a great tool for you to handle internal and structured data, and Python is for you to handle an external data, unstructured data, and all the information from internet, and that's the world's data, right? So if you put SQL and Python after programming, I think you are somehow complete. But this is also telling you we place higher priority of SQL over Python. So SQL is more important than Python for data analytics and business intelligence flow. Okay. So why do we need to put certain things within the bracket? Well, that is because everybody, including the students in the first year of university and they probably will write down SQL and Python as well. They probably will write down every single data tool they know. Okay, so how do you stand out? And this is where, and you want to be specific. But because of the limited space, you cannot write too much. And why do we specifically choose to write complex joins, nested queries, and window functions? So if you don't know, I think we'll need more time to tell you why. This will show you as a more advanced coder rather than a beginner. Only because this is more complex. Not only that, maybe window functions is required if you are working with big data, lots and lots of data, and your query runs slow. If you really want to improve the speed and performance, maybe use nest memory, and you probably want to use window function so you can tune the performance and to make it run faster, right? But you wouldn't run into this kind of problem if you work with very simple and small data set. And that is the distinction we want to draw, between a power user, a more advanced user versus a beginner, right? So database system, we don't just put these things, randomly. If you search the most popular database systems, you probably will see MySQL, SQL Server, and BigQuery, right? And once again, everyone is a little different. I see people who include MongoDB, PostgreSQL. That's fine too. But this will tell you actually have more extensive experience, working with SQL Server. This is Microsoft, and BigQuery. This is GCP, as a Google cloud platform, right? So this actually tells people a lot, right? So dimensional data modeling. This is important because if you put this down, that means you understand database design, data infrastructure, data architecture, and dimensional data modeling. And some people leave this out, advanced Excel. And a lot of times don't look down on Excel. Excel is still important, but you just need to realize there is a whole different way of using Excel. So for instance, if you haven't heard of Power Query, Power Pivot, slicers and timeline, you probably need to learn that, okay? Stats and machine learning. This is definitely important. You can get asked questions about hypothesis testing, A/B testing, clustering, and classification. So these are just different ways of doing machine learning and regression. And scikit-learn is just a Python library, for machine learning. Okay. Any questions so far? Oh, I do have several questions. Okay, sorry. Which jobs are the most? So that's probably related to the 4 rows. This is my view. It's a pyramid. It's a pyramid. I think data analytics jobs are many, but as you go to the top of the pyramid, and then you will see more people working with, models and pipeline, and less jobs, but it pays more, right? And so basically, data analytics is the foundation. Almost every single business team, and they will need help from a data analyst or business intelligence analyst. So it covers more jobs, but probably you get paid, less. Second question from Daniel. As a new grad, I have theoretical understanding of machine learning and deep learning. However, I don't have actual experience in industry previously. I was told it would be difficult to find a job as a data scientist without experience. So I'm thinking about getting a DA job first, as I was told it is more friendly to new grads. Can you? Okay, Daniel, I think that is probably true. That is probably true. So entry-level jobs, once again, even DA and BI, you can get paid more, you can get paid less. Really depends on, you know, how big of a range do you have, right? If you're good at programming, you can run query to answer random questions. I think at least you can do some of the work. Once again, with very little experience, I think it's important. It's still important for you to do some industry-grade, professional quality project to really build a strong resume. And nowadays, the market is very tough. So if you don't have any work experience and your resume doesn't have any additional, project experience to overcome that, I think it's going to be difficult for you to get interviews. Okay, so thank you, Adam, for answering some of the questions. I would kind of share the Jupyter notebook, maybe. Okay, so let me just keep going. All right, so data visualization, this is the important part. So we put Power BI over here, and we put Tableau over there. And once again, I think the sequence matters. Power BI is definitely more popular than Tableau. And we also put some, Python library, and you can do inline visualization as well. Krishna, where can we find these professional level projects that could help in getting interviews? At WeCloudData. So all of our bootcamp programs we use, we don't use toy project, we don't use OpenAI. We actually use actual project, with the big data set, from the real world. Of course, we mask any personal identifying information, so it's not a concern in terms of privacy and security. And over the years, we have received so many different task packages, and we use that, and we have our own internal learning and development team to develop the project and use cases. So join WeCloudData. We're going to make you work on heavy duty industry great project. Okay, so for Power BI, once again we put some specific things over here, and ETL is important within Power BI. So Power Query Editor is a small ETL tool. Data modeling, this echoes dimensional data modeling. And you will understand actually all of these data tools and the underlying logic and data structure are really the same. And DAX and tabular, so DAX stands for data analysis expression. This is super, super important. Very powerful feature of Power BI. And tabular editor, DAX Studio. And if you use these two tools, I think people will perceive you as more advanced user. And custom visuals and interaction design. And you use custom visual only because the visuals provided by Microsoft are not enough, right? So that indirectly also show you as a more advanced user, interaction design as well. So for Tableau, table calculation is important. Level of detail expressions are important. Okay, so once again, Power BI over Tableau in terms of importance. Data analysis and reporting, and this is our foundational skill. Turn any business questions into query. and turn data into insight. So this is just the things you have to know, right? Collecting data, cleaning data, and processing data, and then analyzing data. Okay, and this is also important, present findings and recommend actions with real impact on business. I really like this part. So it's all about business. Data is to serve the business as well. So over here you see revenue growth, cost reduction, efficiency gain, quality improvement. Okay, the last one, this is very similar to software development lifecycle, the SDLC, but we put this as business intelligence development lifecycle. And there are two framework, waterfall versus agile. Waterfall, those of you who are familiar with SDLC, you will understand analysis, development, acceptance, production. When BI becomes a service, when BI becomes a product, and you will go through this as well. So analysis, development, acceptance, production. And agile is Kanban on Scrum. So these are probably, you could argue, these are actually business domain knowledge. So CRM, customer relationship management. So for instance, email campaign. I will give you an example of the email campaign later on. Digital marketing. This is a very important question, marketing attribution. This is very important. And retail e-commerce, financial planning and analysis. Once again, this is not meant to be an exhaustive list of skills, but I think this carries some weight. So just for your curiosity, so if I put all of these, as a bullet, so if I run this, and so the prompt, I designed the prompt as, your task is to improve the skills section on a data analyst resume, delimited by triple backticks. So these are delimited by triple backticks, right? Because, between the triple backticks, you see bullets. So this is bullets. And format each bullet point into a skill category and followed by the most popular tools with the most advanced features, all in one sentence. Okay, so this is the prompt. So let's run this. Okay, so let's just take a look. Is it better or is it the same? Okay, programming proficiency equals expertise in complex turing. I think OpenAI just take my writing, right, and turn this into a smoother, sentence, but it's largely the same. It's largely the same. A relational database management system. Okay. Well, I think this is something you could refer to, but this is definitely more words than this. What is the tuition for the data science bootcamp? I think data science bootcamp, I think Adam can answer that. Yeah, so Adam can answer that using chat. Okay, so this is something I want to show you because of time. So after skills, how can we write about a project, right? This is a very simple project we asked the students to do, and this is probably one of the first project we asked students to do during either the pre-camp or maybe fundamental, data fundamental courses. So this is in energy. It's an energy project. It's solar energy. So as you can tell, this is the name of the company, industry. And these are the data tools we use: Excel, Power Query, Power BI. So take a look. I really like this first bullet. It's very crispy, very punchy. So build pipeline, define KPI, develop dashboards, automate the process. Build pipeline. This sounds like data engineering, but you don't need to be a data engineer to build very simple pipeline. And once again, even for data analysts or BI analysts, we need to learn how to automate the workflow or data flow. So we define KPI when we develop dashboards and then automate the process. So only if you actually spend the time and complete the project, you will develop emotions with all these bullets. Every single bullet is true, and you feel confident about writing this down on your resume. So the second bullet is create layouts and backgrounds and color, not scheme. I think it's color themes. And interactions to make everything pop. I really, really like this. And then automate the process to ingest monthly production file and the rate file. We use two techniques, and the one is unions and the other one is joins. And those of you, who have a SQL background will tell you unions and joins are different. So unions are, so you just stack two tables with the exact same columns top down, and joins, you merge, two tables left and right if they have the same, key, So unions and joins, you define KPI to measure success of the business. We actually mentioned a few KPIs. Even if you're not technical, you would understand build amount, net kWh. So this is the quantity of the electricity, and build amount per bill and net kWh per bill. So this is basically amount per bill and quantity per bill and number of bills issued. So this is just the volume, or maybe the number of customers. And then aggregated and visualized KPI by dimensions. Once again, this is something business users would understand. Customer type, product type, and state, and project, and months. And the last one is highly impactful. So present business growth trends and solar power production seasonality, develop product and pricing strategy to influence commercial and residential customer behavior and optimize revenue. So once again, the bullets are not generic, it's very specific. You can improve this, with some numbers, maybe a percentage and some absolute numbers in dollars, right? Okay, so let me run this. And then your task is to improve the project experience on a data analyst resume delimited by triple brackets. That's C. Okay, develop and implement data pipelines to streamline data collection and processing. Not bad. I actually like it. Define key performance indicators to measure success and track progress. And create a visually appealing interactive dashboard to present data insight. Automated the ingestion of monthly production and rate files through the use of unions and joins. I like it. It's very smooth. It's just more words and more bullets. Aggregate and visualize KPI. Presented business growth trends and solar power to inform product and pricing strategy, optimize revenue by influencing. Yeah, it's shorter. Yeah. So yeah, in this case, I think OpenAI API is useful to some extent. So we have questions. Do we also receive support with a job search and placement after bootcamp? Absolutely, Krishna. So we have bootcamp training and plus career services covered by one tuition. So in fact, we allocate a portion of your tuition to pay the industry experts to help you one-on-one until you find a job. Okay. Oh, Xiao is answering. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so just keep going. We have 10 minutes to go. So let's take a look at a real estate project. So read about a real estate project. I think everybody understands real estate. So let's take a look at the bullets. The bullets, this is Canadian Real Estate Investment Trust. So this is a real company. Real estate, and we work with TXT file. We use Power Query and Power BI. Okay, so let's just take a look at the first bullet. Automated data reporting process, eliminated manual steps, significantly improved operational efficiency, created dynamic interactive dashboard to visualize sites. So it's quite specific. You know, these are sites or maybe buildings, units, rent increase, rent per unit, and rent increase per unit by province, by contract type, unit type. Unit type, you could have, you know, 1 bedroom or bachelor's, two bedroom, right? Contract type, you could, so if you are going to stay, so you could renew your contract, or if somebody move out, so it's a new contract, so it's called turnover. Now, once again, these are specific terms to that industry, and you will need to know. Identify opportunity for revenue maximization. I like this one. Build pro forma financial statement based on revenue drivers, average rent increase on turnovers versus renewal. And you wouldn't be able to know, you know, if you don't have the domain knowledge. Recommended strategy to mitigate risk. What is the risk for renewal? For renewals, you know, we have rent control, right? Rent increase is capped at 2.5 and 2.0 in Ontario and British Columbia. So in the current environment with the inflation, but you can't just increase the rent that much if it's a renewal. And then for turnovers, if somebody move out, you know, and the unit is—
Excuse me, Mr. Liu.
Yes.
So could you just zoom in on your web browser, please, so that I can read a bit better?
Perfect.
If
Okay.
if you made it like wide, that'll be helpful. Just yeah, just zoom it out a little bit. Thank you.
Okay.
Or zoom in.
No problem. Better? Okay.
Much better. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So here for turnovers, so if you need to do some simple renovation, and then you will have a lost rent during the days vacant for renovation listing and showing. So this is pretty specific. I think that shows whoever, you know, did this project actually understand the business part and the data part. So let's do this. Run. And let's see what OpenAI can do to improve this. Is this better? Streamline data, significant improvement, develop a dynamic. I think it's pretty much more or less the same, right? Yeah, I think it's more or less the same. Okay, the next one. Read about a retail, you know what, let me skip this one. Let's go to the last one. Read about a CRM digital marketing email campaign project. So this is a CRM and digital marketing campaign analyst. So work with marketers and engineers to design and execute email campaigns. This is very, very specific. It tells you the relationship, the work and the work relation. Design and execute email campaigns, generate leads and drive sales. Cover end-to-end process from, you know, the end-to-end process includes leads generation and campaign execution and performance management. Generate a targeted email list based on business rules. So if you Google, you will find out this is do not call list. Of course, you cannot, you know, call them or email them. And this is Canadian anti-spam legislation. And once again, you cannot email them if they opt out or unsubscribe. Segment the email list based on demographic behavior and preference characteristics for personalized content. This is also understood. Use a random seed to divide the email list into control and test group. And you see, this one simple sentence tells people you completely, thoroughly understand A/B testing. So use A/B email creatives. So how is A and B created different? So you could be different, you could use different subject, different body, different call to action, right? And to determine what works and what doesn't. And the last one, define KPIs. And once again, be specific. Open rate, click rate, conversion rate, to measure email campaign performance, improve ROI, and reduce the cost of acquisition. Okay, I think this is a really good write-up for this project. So let's run this. Okay, the next one. Hopefully, OpenAI can improve this. Okay, let's take a look. Collaborate with marketers is highly effective. Lead generation, so to manage the entire. Yeah, largely the same, and maybe in terms of grammar and the structure is better. So once again, I just want to tell you that you need to have really good prompts. You will need to feed OpenAI something to get something back. And once again, you can try a different way to ask OpenAI to keep improving it. And this doesn't replace the role of a good mentor. And I think with a good mentor, and if the mentee also knows how to work with OpenAI, you will definitely be able to build a good resume. Okay, because of time, 4 minutes, I'm going to show you this real quick. Prepare for interview based on a job description. I already run this. So I just copy paste a random, job posting from Indeed. Let me just run this. Okay, with this as the prompt, so this is job description. I'm going to ask, summarize the job description delimited by triple backticks. Format the summary into an ordered list of 10 sentences or less. That's fine. That's pretty fast. We are Canadian banking operations seeking a manager operations architecture. The role involves architecting the future of operations, designing key operations product. It's pretty cool, right? So we'll just shorten this very easily, so you can focus on. And I tried this before. You can change the verb from summarize to extract. You can change the prompt into extract the most relevant information, and then this will look different. This will look different. So once again, you have to just play with OpenAI, API endpoint to get high quality answer. But this is what the mentor did. The mentor did quite a bit of research. So I call this blurbs. So these are the very, very good information about RBC as an organization, and also Canadian Banking Division and Operation Transformation Architecture team. Okay, so let me just run this. And then this is beautiful. We're going to generate a mock interview. So we asked OpenAI to design a mock interview based on the 7 most common questions. And we create answers incorporating the blurbs delimited by triple backticks. Format the mock interview as a transfer of question and answers. So interview asks a question and candidate answer that question with a story. Ask a question, answer that question with a story. Blah, 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 right? So let's do this. Let's run this. This is pretty scary, What do you think? Why do you think you're qualified for this role? I believe I'm qualified for this role because I have a strong understanding and challenges if I have a deep knowledge of vertical functions within a banking organization, including front office, middle office, and back office. It's pretty cool, eh? What do you know about operations architecture in this role? Is the metrics of vertical function horizontal process within a company involves designing and optimizing the operation product, which include reusable data code apps, tools, and the workflow. Wow. Why do you want to leave your current role? I'm looking to leave my current role because I believe this opportunity aligns more closely with my skills and interests. Yeah, don't say anything bad about your current role. Although I gain valuable experience in my current role, I'm eager to work in a role that allows me to focus, operation architecture. What do you like and dislike? Can you tell me about your strengths, accomplishments, and success? Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? I see myself in leadership role within. This is like a real person between two people. Okay, so because of time, I'm going to stop here. And let me just stop sharing. Okay, look at the question. Okay, so I know Shala is here already, so maybe we can get to the second part of the event. Shala.
Hey, I'm here. Hi, everyone. The second part of today's session is basically Career Mentor AMA. So both Eric and I have been working as data career mentors for, I think, over 7 years, probably even longer with Eric. So
Yes.
we've helped a lot of students land data jobs. If you have any questions regarding resumes, interviews, job search, job market, how to get prepared, how to get started with data, feel free to ask us. We are here to answer all of your questions. So feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type your questions in Zoom chat. We're happy to answer your questions.
So it's AMA, ask me anything, ask Shala and me anything.
Hi Eric, hi Zhang, this is Jeet. First of all, thank you for your session. And the question I have, when you showed me the resume part, which we can generate using ChatGPT, if we copy paste the things from ChatGPT, won't the recruiters find out that it's copy pasted from ChatGPT?
Again, ChatGPT is only a tool. And sometimes if you don't feed ChatGPT, with the substance, it's going to return the words that are hollow, superficial, not deep, or not concrete, not specific. So please take ChatGPT or OpenAI as a tool to improve something you already have. So it could be an idea, but you just don't know how to word it, put the idea into the right words and say it. And oftentimes, that's the reason why I say mentor is important, because the mentor has been there and done that, and the mentor knows the job, knows the environment, and the mentor knows what kind of key points, maybe bullet points the employer are looking for. How can you create resumes that attracts the attention of the employer. So only if with the mentor's help you can feed the ChatGPT with something, it's like a work in progress. It will return something that's better. You know what I mean? You can't just ask a very generic question and just copy paste the answer. And usually that kind of answer is no quality.
Yeah, to that,
Yeah.
I think ChatGPT can help you to write some answers, but it still needs to be, you need to tweak it because it has to be based on your real experience, right? If you have worked on data projects, there are two different scenarios. If you have relevant or related experience in data science and data analytics, and then you also have your side projects or Kaggle projects on your resume based on our experience working with many students, because most of the time we'll ask them for feedback, like ask our students about their experience during the interviews. They would tell us whenever they have like real project experience or related experience, employers will most likely focus on that. And if you don't have any related experience, for example, students in the part-time programs, most of them don't really work on the real client projects, then your portfolio project or Kaggle projects will be very important. But even if you can use ChatGPT to write it for you, you still need to be able to tweak it based on your personal experience. With some of the real projects, employers will be asking like, very detailed questions. They will be asking questions like, who did you work with, right, in this project? How big is the team? They'll ask very granular questions. And what is your specific role in this project? And what is the objective of the project? And then along the way, they will probe and ask you more questions about you, because they understand most of the data projects are teamwork, and you work on a portion of it, and they will want to understand like exactly what you contributed to the project, so that they can understand how sophisticated the process is, and how much you've actually done on the project. Because sometimes you can put something on the resume and feels like you did everything, but when they actually ask you, then they realize that you only did data cleaning, for example. So that is very, very important. So I think ChatGPT wouldn't really know that. But if you can sort of like what Eric did, like write out your experience and ask ChatGPT to sort of rephrase it for you to make it look more professional, I think it will be very helpful, and it's based on your experience. So I wouldn't consider that as, I don't think recruiters will be able to find out that easily.
Yeah, I think we need to really understand you need the experience. We're talking about you have the experience, you just don't have the right words to describe it, right? Versus the circumstance that people don't have the experience, and then they just copy paste and borrow from somebody else's experience. That's going to backfire. I have seen the cases, and which is a bad case, and I'm strongly against that. If some mentor, they just take it over and write out the experience that the mentee doesn't have, it's going to be cursed. Usually, the resume will get interviews, but every single time the student or the mentee will go to an interview, and I become a big disappointment, right? So I think you understand what I meant. So that individual is cursed. He will get interviews. He will get 20 interviews probably, but every single time he will go there as a big disappointment. So don't reverse this. You need the experience, but now we're talking about how to convert that experience, how to do justice to that experience, how to write up good bullet points and to describe that experience. Okay, I think there's a question, I think for Shawa, from Tiru Y, 10 years experience in backend development, want to move into data science and AI. What are your comments?
So I think if you come from software or backend development background, it's a very exciting time. You can there are two different types of data jobs you can consider. First of all, I wouldn't recommend you just jump right into becoming a data scientist, because you absolutely need to work in a role that allows you to leverage your strength. Your strength is you understand software engineering. So you can either, if you're really into AI, you can dive deeper into those algorithms and just become like a machine learning engineer. So that requires you to have decent knowledge about machine learning, right? Data science, analytics, and then you need to learn deep learning, large language models. But you will be training models, right? That will be a little bit different from what you have been doing in the past 10 years. You have to actually learn something to understand if you actually enjoy doing that. Like a lot of developers I've worked with, they don't really enjoy the science part of like machine learning. They're more interested in building applications. So another direction is really just leverage generative AI to build exciting applications. So it doesn't mean that you need to be expert in AI deep learning algorithms, but you can actually just leverage existing, open source large language models and just build some exciting applications. And I think a lot of companies will want talents who know how to take things into production. And ultimately, if you want to build, because I think the reason AI has been around for many years, the reason why ChatGPT all of a sudden make this mainstream is because this is the first time that AI is so accessible by anyone, and it's just such a great user experience. Right, the interface is great. It's a chat, interface, and it's the application that's great. Of course, the algorithms are powerful, but it has been around for many years. But it's mainly, in academics, right? But in research, so you start to see so many startups, right, trying to, have the ride on this wave. So working with open source tools and build applications, that's one direction. So join companies that are building AI applications, so you will still get to work with AI. But if you really are into algorithms, you would like to become a data scientist, then again, I think you can try to become a machine learning engineer, which means you need to understand machine learning, model training, the whole end-to-end ML pipeline. But you can also focus on deploying machine learning models. That still requires, deep understanding of software development life cycle. You need to build and maintain APIs and figure out how to scale things. That's another exciting area. Or maybe into like operations side, which is MLOps. So that touches on more like infrastructure, cloud, Kubernetes, and Docker containerization, and those kind of things. But these are some of the directions. Most of the software engineers I talk to, if you ask them to do data analysis, they don't feel excited about it because the coding part is not the challenging part. It's actually, you do need to enjoy working with the business, right? Be very detail oriented, and you have to dig into the data, find patterns. That is still the critical skills that data scientists and data analytics professionals need to have. But if you really enjoy coding, then you can build AI applications, or you can do machine learning engineering. Those will have definitely more coding, and you will really enjoy that. But you have to take a course and figure out if that's something you like.
Okay, Krishna asked about ways to boost your chances of getting interviews, and
Yeah. So GitHub is definitely important. We did a data fundamental course in the first cohort. We made it free. So we had a lot of students who submitted their resumes. We've been spending days just going through like 100 resumes. We're still not done yet, but usually employers only spend a couple of seconds on your resume, but we spend like, I think 10 minutes on each resume. And a common issue we noticed is that majority of the students don't, like, even when they mention that they have worked on Kaggle or side projects, they just don't have a link. And then they're like, I think there are 20% of people who have GitHub. When you click into it, the code just don't look good. So my suggestion is that you need to have someone review your code. If you have GitHub, recruiters and hiring managers, like people who are serious, they will check out the link. But if the code quality is not good, you'd rather not show it. But I think many people don't have it, probably because they just don't have code on GitHub. I would still definitely highly recommend everyone to have a project uploaded to GitHub. But you don't just do that last minute. I think most people care about like the commit history, like how long you've been using that, or maybe you only uploaded the whole thing only once and you never had any history. That means you don't really do a lot of those, collaboration, right? So that would be my recommendation. For data engineers, like, Eric always say that BI students, you naturally have the biggest advantage because whatever analytics you do, you have to do visual storytelling. It's very easy for you to showcase what you've done. If you're capable, you can build the best dashboard. People will be able to see and feel that. Data science gets a little bit tricky because it's machine learning, right? So I would say for machine learning projects, like your notebook alone is not enough. You need to have a project summary. Like you need to, because most of the data science projects are product related, marketing related, risk related. It's all business related. So you need to have a project summary, or you need to have some sort of presentation that summarizes everything you've done. And people know that when people read it, I think it will be, very impressive. But don't just upload a notebook, because people don't really understand what you've done and the level of effort, unless your README file, right? The markdown file in GitHub is really awesome. I've seen some of those, right? For data engineers, it's even harder, because a lot of things you've done, like, people can't really see that. So it's important for you to upload an end-to-end project, whatever workflow diagram. If you use Airflow to automate a data pipeline, you want to show the diagram and data architecture with people, how you deploy things in the cloud. I think that will catch people's attention. So that's important. So it's sort of like storytelling for your project, right? You have to visualize the diagram. So always have some sort of visualization. That's important. So that would be my recommendation. And definitely don't just upload a notebook. Your description need to be really, really well done. And you have to nail that.
And Christian also asked about certification. I personally am not a big fan of certification. I think a good portfolio is actually a more reliable indicator of your success on the job.
Yeah. If you come from an enterprise world, you know that, Oracle certification or Microsoft certification, those are usually required. If you do cybersecurity, people may want you to be certified. When it comes to data, it's not that important, because the most important skill is dealing with data, and there's no certification on that. No one is like quizzing you on how well you can clean the data. If you look at AWS machine learning certification, multiple choice questions. So you still cannot tell if this person can actually build something. It's very easy to study, have go through a course and you just pass the exam. And that's why certification is not that popular, like, actually in the data space. It's more about showing what you have done. Experience, I think companies value experience way more than certifications. But if you absolutely want to do some certification to boost your resume, because it's still valuable, right? But if you're thinking about prioritizing your time, like, are you going to work on one more project, have an awesome diagram, or are you just going to spend the same amount of time on certification? Then I would definitely prioritize the personal project or whatever project experience they can get. But if you do have extra bandwidth to work on certification, then I think for data scientists, data analytics professionals, getting cloud certification like AWS, the associate level certification will be useful. But you don't have to be at the cloud engineer level, because you think about how data scientists are going to use the cloud. They're still working with the cloud databases. They're still going to use Drupal notebooks, have a Python environment. So ultimately, it's still your data handling, data manipulation capability. You're just like switching from a server on premise to the cloud. So, and most of those are quite easy to learn, to be honest. It's very different from how the DevOps are going to interact with the cloud or cloud engineers, right? But my recommendation is, if you want to get a data scientist job or BI engineer job, then you actually want to know a little bit about data engineering. You don't need to become a data engineer, but knowing some data engineering automation will be helpful, because I think in the future, employers will be looking for candidates who sort of know a little bit of everything. Because, we all live in this, very demanding environment where, unless you work for big tech or big companies where your role is very well defined, you just need to train machine learning models. But a lot of the new opportunities are going to come from those startups and companies who are transitioning into the cloud. They expect people to know a lot of different things, because they may not have the budget to hire one data scientist, one BI, one data engineers. If they only have one headcount, they sort of expect you to be specialized in data science, but also know a little bit data engineering and dashboard. So definitely need to learn more. Yeah.
So Daniel Xu is a new grad, and he has some really good questions about where to find good project and industry great project. I think he's into data science programming.
Yeah, so when it comes to Twitter, a lot of our students have worked with Twitter API in the past. I understand that, Twitter, even like now with all the limitations, it's harder to scrape large amounts of data, but I don't think it's the volume of the data that matters. Twitter does some sampling anyways. But the most impressive projects our students have worked on is actually the real-time analytics. So can you ingest, right, Twitter data in real time into a NoSQL database? And somehow, like when the data is ingested into NoSQL database, it triggers some sort of Lambda function that has your machine learning algorithm that generates prediction. It's this sort of like end-to-end process, and you have to choose a database. For example, do you ingest tweets into Elasticsearch or MongoDB database? And end users will be using full text search. And can you use Kibana to build a real-time dashboard? That sort of also require you to set up Elasticsearch and Kibana on an EC2 instance in the cloud. That's where you showcase your cloud skills. Like you don't need a certification, but if you can do a project that requires you put all of these together, that shows experience already. You can build a machine learning model and use that for real-time prediction. I think that will be helpful. It doesn't have to be. I think Twitter is always a good data source for data science projects because at least you can use your own hashtags. And if data is trendy, it's always new. Yeah, that's something I would recommend. Or you can do web scraping to collect, some data and train your own large language models. I think but like whatever projects that stood out in the past were always like original data source. It could be scraped from somewhere, but that shows the level of effort. Even for companies who want to do large language modeling, sometimes they have to work with Mechanical Turks or some sort of labeling services, or even just do web scraping to enrich the data and label the data. So these effort doesn't sound very data sciencey, but that's very important because when you work on real life data science project, you need to do that. That will make your project experience way more complete, and employers will be impressed. Yeah.
So he also has a follow-up questions. Does he need to get into computer vision, NLP, deep learning, or just focus on the general traditional models like trees or classification problems?
Yeah, it depends. So I think even a lot of the project partners we work with, right, in an insurance company, and they start to inquire about building chatbots and training large language models. I think a lot of companies are interested. They don't want to upload data to OpenAI because due to whatever compliance reasons. So they would like to train some of these models in-house, but for most of the company, it's just a proof of concept, right? Before you apply that enterprise-wide. There are a lot of hurdles they need to go through, but they want to prove something first. So I would say most of the opportunities are still like in the traditional companies. I think understanding classic machine learning algorithms are more important. Like how many data scientists does a bank need to train computer vision models? It's usually in their research labs. If you want to do marketing, risk management, fraud detection, right, all of these require traditional data science or machine learning algorithms, and XGBoost will just work great. And a lot of times it's even better than deep learning models, unless you can have really good data set training data for deep learning algorithms. So I would prioritize that. But if you have more time, getting specialized in one of these, like NLP, large language modeling, computer vision, will definitely make your resume look interesting. And just keep in mind, and if you're open to apply for both data analytics and data science jobs, remove the machine learning part from when you apply for data analytics jobs, for example, because sometimes they may think you're overqualified or you will not stay on the job for a long time. And companies would rather hire someone who can just do the work and stay for 2 years instead of someone who excited about machine learning and then will just jump in 3 months, right? But if you apply for data science jobs, I think adding a large language modeling, it will be very interesting. So it definitely is something you can add. Yeah. But when it comes to, large language modeling, generative AI, it also depends on how you're going to use it. Are you doing prompt engineering, some fine tunings or training from scratch, right? That will be much harder. So it depends on how specialized you want to become. Yeah, I would definitely just recommend, fine tuning will will be useful for most of the use cases already. Yeah.
So here's a question from Josh Farina. I received similar question before. So people coming from public sector, not just public sector, maybe traditional industry where new technology, data science doesn't see, high level of adoption, but he personally wants to get into data science. How do you advise people to make sense of the past experience to become relevant to the future employer? How can we make that linkage, from traditional to digital, or from low tech to high tech?
Yeah. Is that Josh's question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Josh. Like it is definitely hurting you because most of the companies now, I think, if it was 3 years ago, it would be very easy for you to transition into data science. That's because your analytics experience is considered to be very relevant, right? And you just need to prove that you know more advanced analytic skills. But I think the market is changing a little bit with generative AI and large language models. Like I think the expectation for data scientists is getting higher, and companies will expect the data scientists to not only know how to just train models, but like what's the point of training all of these models? In the past, the models can be used by marketing, retail, right? Team to just do that's for analytics purpose. You help people understand why customers are leaving or why someone is a risky customer. So like you're doing a lot of explanation and use that for predictive analytics purpose as well. But I think with all the AI stuff, you don't use AI just to do analyses. Like you need AI to turn that into like your product, a product feature. So that requires the data scientist to understand how to work with the software team to deploy something. And that's why machine learning engineering is also becoming popular. So I think that the requirement for data scientists in the future is that you need to understand how model work in production, right? And of course, there are always data scientists who specialize in research and more like just focusing on analytics. That's no problem. But I see the market is more demanding, like for data scientists to know more, or also need to know more about deep learning. In some companies, in some environment, data scientists sort of like need to know data engineering as well. I see that quite common as well, because when you read the job description, it's sometimes like kind of confusing. Like the data scientists need to know cloud and know this and that. But that probably means that the company want you to sort of to be able to juggle different things. So I think they may consider some of your past experience, right, more from like a traditional background, and it may not apply directly to their environment. But it's actually not true, right? Because I think
It's not true.
if you think about the key of data science is still analytics.
Yeah.
So what's transferable, as Eric said, is the analytics skill. Like I've worked with a lot of software engineers, and because they're naturally like very excited about coding and solving tough problems, they don't pay a lot of attention to analytics side because they think that's easy, right? I think I'm generalizing. It's not always the case, but my point here is that to be really good at data science, like coding is probably not the most important part. It's like you really need to know how to dig into the data, find patterns, and explaining things, and that all requires a lot of attention to details. And just the general analytic skills is very important. And machine learning and scikit-learn, these are really just tools to help you do a better job. So this is one type of data scientist, and analytic skills are very transferable. I've worked with a lot of executives. They don't know how to code, but they're just super good at reading numbers and just like asking questions. These are very good analytic skills. So I think your past experience, even leading a team, is very valuable. But you can definitely do all of those data science jobs. But somehow I think on your resume, you just need to prove to these employers that you just have the right mindset and you have the right skills. And one trick I would like to recommend is writing resume. To me, A lot of time is about removing things. It's not about adding things.
Yes.
I've written so many resumes and people want to keep all of their past experiences. I always tell people remove 50% of what you want to put there. Is just remove them. It's not adding too much value. And if you remove things, because it's just changing the way how people perceive the value you're trying to deliver here on your resume. So having someone look over your resume would definitely be helpful because I think you have a lot of experience. It's just about storytelling and just changing people's perception. Yeah.
And Josh, I can think of two use cases if you're creative. I remember in the good old days, I sat in the same training room in SAS Institute with a number of people from, Canada, CRA, so it's Canada Revenue Agency. So they were using some sort of modeling to sample the taxpayers so they can accurately find people who are escaping tax. That's a very, very good use case. And the other one, just 2 weeks ago, one of our students in the West Coast, Alberta, he was interviewed by the government of Alberta. It's about the linear industry property assessment. So you will need some sort of valuation model to accurately assess the tax base because it's oil and gas. So how do you assess the tax base for a well, for a pipeline, right? So you can tax them. So there are many use cases you can link into your previous domain. Okay, next question from Fozan. How do we make our code look better? There are many ways. Shall you want to get that?
Yeah, sure. So when you think about the code quality, right? So we're not, if you're looking for data jobs, it doesn't really have to be at the software engineer level. Right? But one question you need to ask yourself is, if someone is going to download your code, are they able to run it without making much change, too many changes, right? Are they able to understand like what steps to follow to be able to just run your code directly? Because a lot of times, like when you download someone's code, you just don't even know how to run it, right? So that means, do you have an environment file, right? Or help people understand what packages to install, right? In the like set up the Python environment. Is your code modularized? Right? Do you have a data loader? For some of those code that's repeating, because in data science it's very easy because working with Jupyter Notebook, it's interactive. You run your code like cell by cell, and you notice that some kind of visualization, creating a pie chart, a line chart. As you go through your analysis, you're going to have the same bar plot multiple times. Are you always going to run that five lines of code where you can copy and paste and change some parameters? That's the time for you to write a function to modularize that. Maybe have someone who is more experienced, a software engineer, take a look at your code, and they're going to give you a lot of feedback. They will tell you that your code sucks and learn from that and improve that. Another important part is like really provide good comment, right? You have to annotate the code and comment, provide, it's related to your documentation skills. If your code doesn't look great, but you can comment really well, I think that still works. At least it needs to look tidy and clean, right? You're not supposed to. I've seen a lot of GitHub projects where there's a Jupyter notebook and they ran it once and there's some errors and the error message is still there. That doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, these are some of my recommendations. Can you elaborate on what you meant by focus on analytics. Can you please provide details and some examples of what is analytics? So you just mean calculating metrics. I think I just meant like data analysis in general. I think that was related to the previous question. So when I said that data science is more about analytics, right? So the analytics here can be used in advanced analytics skills such as machine learning. But ultimately, like, it's actually very easy to write 10 lines of code and it can train a model. And doing parameter tuning is not hard. But it's more about these models that we trained. How useful is that? Right? Can you help people understand what is the key drivers or the important variables? Can you explain that well? And also, can you sort of summarize how your models can be used, the pros and cons of your models in production? So you can write, because when you do presentations, usually you will need to tell the stakeholders, right, I have this model, and they don't care about the details of the algorithms, right? The question is always, what's the impact? How much money can we save with this model? How certain are you about this model, right? So you need to talk about validation as well. How can we actually use it? The marketing team will be very keen to understand the top influencers or top drivers of customer churn, for example, and they'll understand how to do that. And sometimes using Excel, right, to do some data profiling will be very helpful. But you need to figure out how to explain the model. It's all about how the models can generate business values. So I think that's something you need to focus on. You might be just writing 50 lines of code and you train a model, but you are going to spend way more time just digging into the data and figuring out how to explain things to people. That's what I meant by analytics.
So Shawa, we have talked about bootcamp, we have talked about career services, we talk about project, but we haven't talked about real-time project. And maybe it's worth mentioning, for people who don't have relevant work experience.
Right. So WeCloudData is a training academy, and we are a little bit different from other boot camps because we also run a consultancy. So we have data science and AI projects and data engineering projects as well. Most of the students in our immersive boot camps, when they graduate, they will be placed on the real projects for 6 months to accumulate work experience. But we also have learners who have graduated from boot camp, so they have got certified or they're already experienced. But their challenge is that they're in the job market and it's very competitive, so it's hard to stand out because they only have the Kaggle project experience. So those students sometimes will work with us on real projects, and this service, including the career mentorship, usually can help them get jobs faster. I believe everyone, as long as they put into effort, they will be able to get a job. But I think we're in the business of helping people to speed that up, because when you have 6 more months of experience on the resume, that experience is going to follow you, for the next 3 jobs you're going to get. Because some students are moving on to their 3rd jobs, they're still coming back to us, and their employers will be calling us and ask about the projects they have worked on 3 years ago. So it helps with their promotion as well. So yeah, so if you're ever interested in working on some real projects while getting mentored on those projects, and these are not sample projects, you actually need to join the team, work with our project managers and project lead, and also you need to work directly with the client. So this can help you greatly speed up the process.
And our coverage is not just Canada, right? The real-time project also come from the US. We have a couple, members from the US.
Yeah. It's helpful for someone to get a senior job as well, because we have students in the program who's aiming for senior positions. So when you work on the real client projects, it gives you a lot of experience to even lead things. Yesterday we had students from the data engineering program He was sort of like a team lead because he expressed interest in leading things. So he was actually leading part of the projects. And a month and a half in, he got a lead data engineer position. He actually just graduated from the boot camp. He's a software engineer. So that really works out for him. Yeah. You can select projects. We have usually a list of projects that student can pick. Some students pick projects based purely on interest. Some students will pick projects based on the companies. So it depends. And there are bigger projects, there are smaller projects. Some learners will prefer to work on smaller projects because they're busy at work. They have a full-time job. So they will sort of work on it on a part-time capacity. So they prefer to work on smaller scope projects, but they get to finish more projects. So they have more things to talk about. But some students will prefer to go with a big company and work on the project for 6 months. That works out as well. Usually get to select 3 companies you would like to work with, and then we'll help you pick the best one.
Any more questions from the audience? Please feel free. Any questions, you can ask us any questions. And Shawa is here, and Shawa is running the consulting beamdata.ai, and he also created data science bootcamp and data engineering bootcamp, machine learning engineering. What about the market, Shawa? The outlook?
The market was terrible early this year, but it started to pick up. Yeah, because we see more students getting offers. It's definitely getting better. And also, I heard that the big tech companies are also start to hire again. So that I think that's a good sign. But don't quote me on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you get segmentation projects? Segmentation is usually part of the projects we do. We haven't done projects that's purely focusing on segmentation, but it's usually like when we do machine learning, we'll need to do some segmentation first. It's usually part of a bigger project. We've done some of these in the past with Samsung, because they have a lot of retail stores, so we did a lot of segmentation, but that was like 3-4 years back. Yeah.
So usually you need to do segmentation of the customer first before you do a recommender system, for different segments. 2 steps of the same project: customer segmentation and product recommendation. Any more questions? We have 17 minutes to go. We can take more questions from the audience.
Yes, I have a question. Like, I'm in Canada. I'm in near Toronto, and I have applied to like 200 job applications for data analyst positions, but I have not got a single interview call. So is it because of the job market, or it could be my resume?
So this is probably the most frustrating experience. You apply, and it's like shouting into a black hole. You just never hear back from, the jobs you apply for. And usually, people immediately think it's the resume not working. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. Several things you will need to make sure you do right. So, for instance, you need to apply for new jobs, and some people apply for jobs that's 1 week old, and that's not good. So I usually ask the students to create a search, a more advanced search, and then bookmark it. And every day, click it and apply for 10 jobs but do it every day. And you also configure the search that will return only the posting that got, the jobs that got posted in the last 24 hours. And make sure you apply for only jobs that got posted in the last 24 hours. And if you can apply for these jobs before 8:30 in the morning, before everybody else does, and I think you can make sure your resume will see in the top 30, top 50. And our students change the time to apply, and also the age of the jobs, and they immediately receive more feedback, even rejections. And rejection is better than nothing, right? So make sure you apply for only new jobs, apply early in the day, and apply 10 jobs a day and every day. And if after 2 weeks you still don't hear back from the job you applied for, I think it's the resume that's not working.
And do you recommend customizing the resume for every job?
No, no. So I believe in, you could prepare more than one version of your resume, so you can do A/B testing. But I don't trust the quality of quote unquote customization that you did in half an hour, even an hour. So craft a good resume and be very clear, in the target industry and target jobs. Just upload your resume and press the submit button. You don't need to customize your resume for every single job posting.
But our resume should be ATS friendly.
Yes, that's very important. So I was going through like a lot of resumes lately. I noticed that some resumes are just not ATS friendly. And I've downloaded one PDF file, and somehow like I can't just because we have some code as well, I just cannot parse it. And it feels like it's just an image. Definitely that's something you should avoid. And I think a resume that is row based, like it's row by row instead of like 2 columns, because you see different styles. Some people prefer to have a nice looking version that has 2 columns. It's like a table. Those are usually harder to parse. I know like ATS machines are trying its best, but it's not always working out. We've also posted jobs on like hiring jobs on like Indeed and some other websites as well. And sometimes it's for like sales operations, for example, or hiring consultants. And sometimes, Indeed has ATS, it's like parsing those resumes. Sometimes it doesn't do a good job because of the layout of the resume. So I still would prefer just to go with like a easier template or layout. Yeah, a simple.
Totally agree. Don't do tables. Don't do 2 columns. Don't even do headers and footers. And it's beyond your imagination. A less looking PDF, if you try to parse it, it's totally messed up. If you know that, you will not do that, because you simply blow your chance. Any more questions? We have 10 minutes to go. So George asked about the real-time project on the website. I think the Beam Data website is also useful, right? So,
Yeah, we have I think a real client project page on the WeCloud website as well.
okay.
Yeah, but you can email us if you are interested in like talking to one of the mentors and decide if this is the right program for you. You can email us. Yeah.
Yeah. And for George and for other people who have already invested in another bootcamp or maybe a continuing education program from a university or maybe a degree program, but you still can't find a job. You know, sometimes it's because of, you know, the lack of experience. So Real-Time Project can really help. It's even better than the co-op or internship, because if you go to the co-op or internship, usually you work on the routine work. But our real-time project, it's project-based, so there's work scope and clear deliverable, and it's just more intensive. So you just learn a lot more within the same period of time, and it's better material that you could write on your resume, and it's good stories that can tell during the interview. To show is mass concept needed for.
Yeah, it's definitely needed if you want to do really well in machine learning and AI. When it comes to data science, I think some people focus on the analytics side, building predictive models, and some will focus more on the machine learning side. I think if you work on the practical machine learning challenges, knowing some basic statistics and linear algebra will definitely help. But it's helpful in the sense that it helps you understand different algorithms and how to apply them. So you don't really need deep mathematics knowledge for that. It's more about understanding the end-to-end workflow and following the best practices, and because you always need to have validation and test data set. So you know that if your model works well on the validation, as long as your validation process is a standard process, you will be able to tell if your model works good or not. And that's why comparing machine learning to statistics, the traditional statistical methods, is that they don't focus that much on the p-values, right? And the confidence intervals and those kind of things. And it doesn't even have p-value, in scikit-learn, right? You have to calculate that yourself. They focus more on the prediction power and how accurate the model is. And yeah, you need to follow a standard process to be able to achieve that. That doesn't require deep math knowledge. However, if you want to become a senior data scientist, it's absolutely critical that you understand math better, because whenever you want to do something that's more advanced, or if you want to do more deep learning, right? Like if you're just working with the API, then you don't need math knowledge then. But if you would like to do fine tunings and just improve on things, or when things go wrong, or the model is just not performing, and you would like to figure out how to improve, I think that's where math or like will become more important. But to be honest, like to begin with data science, right? Math is not the most important part. I usually recommend students to start working on some small projects right away. And as you work through those challenges, you'll start to notice that you need there are things that you need to learn more about and improve upon. So you can sort of go backwards and pick up more mathematics and linear algebra and optimization. Yeah, but and then when you go from machine learning to deep learning, I think you sort of need to invest in math and optimization again in order to understand a lot of the deep learning concepts.
So from G2, I think in Canada, there are more chances to get an interview through referrals or networking with people on LinkedIn rather than traditional online applications. I believe both are important, you need to apply online, and you need to also, leverage the connections and resources. So within WeCloudData, and we also grow the community. We have a big network of alumni and successful students and mentees in the past, and some of them are in hiring position. And it's definitely a good thing if we can, fast track your resume and put in the hands of the hiring manager, and then you're competing with only a handful of people instead of, hundreds of people, right? So you will at least get an interview. But once again, your resume needs to be ready, and you need to look good on a resume. And usually for any referral opportunities, we ask the referrer to handpick, to maybe pick from 5 or 10 resumes we put together in a zip, and then so that person who is close to the hiring manager will shortlist the resume and present just a handful of resumes to the hiring manager. And you also need to be ready for the interview. A referral will only get you an interview, but you still need to pass the interview, right? That's still the same. So we do referrals when the opportunities arise. At the same time, it's equally important that the students and mentees apply 10 jobs a day, every day, and it's a long battle. But if you do the things right, and you will get interviews, and you will get better at interviewing, and you will pass interview. The question about is the referral system I mentioned also provide to students working on the project only. It is within. We don't differentiate the students who do the bootcamp and the real-time project, or real-time project only. We want to make the best use of that referral opportunity, because we know that if the hiring manager like the people we recommend, they will come back to us again and for more referrals. So the answer is yes. Iran, what benefit one can get to work with US-based companies in comparison with Canadian companies? What are your recommendations if someone could get offer from those? Depending on where you are you in Canada and looking for remote opportunities to work for a company in the US? Okay. I think now it become more common. You can be based in Vancouver, but you work for companies in Seattle or maybe in West Coast, California. And especially, with data jobs, it's totally possible. Technologically, it's not a problem at all. I think we all know that the companies in the US, the jobs may pay more, but you will need to deal with the cross-border tax issue. It may not be too much of the issue if the pay is good. So I think we started to tell our students, don't limit your search only to Canadian jobs, or only to Ontario, only to Toronto. That's just too narrow, right? And open to the remote opportunities. And then it doesn't matter where you are, where the job is, you could do that. International student on work permit, can I still work remotely from Canada for US companies without USA? I think you want to hear that from an expert. on the visa issue, but I take down this question. This is an interesting question. From Daniel, what is the successful rate of finding jobs in the periods of 6 to 12 months after graduation for students in the bookend in the most recent cohort? Shawa, would you like to talk about the statistics posted on the government website?
Yeah. So we're basically registered like a career college, right? So in Canada, you need to be a college in order to be able to offer boot camps. So in the US, we're just a regular boot camp. We're registered in the US as well, but not a college. So in Canada, the government will basically call every single student enrolled in the college program 6 months after graduation and ask them about the placement rate. So in July, they just published the numbers for all the students who graduated in 2021. So there's a 1 year lag. So I think we ranked the best. We have 90.9% placement rate, which means 90.9% of the students get jobs. But there's also another metric, which is what percentage of those students get jobs in the field of their study, which means how many of them get data jobs. With us, it's 90.9%, which means all of the students get data jobs. And our internal number is actually higher than that. But I think relatively speaking, when we did some research, and these numbers are public on the government website, I think General Assembly and some other big institutions in Canada, when you look at the placement rate, it's usually 80%, 70%, 90%. But when you look at like percentage of students graduates getting data jobs, the second best is 68%. So we're leading by way ahead of our competitors. So it's 68%. There's another big institution which is only 50%. So yeah, but if you're asking about the most recent one in 2022, I think within 6 months, it's about 70%. This year, it is especially tough because it's very competitive, a lot of job cuts. So I think in January and February, like we hardly see any student getting jobs, but the overall market is just like that. It starts to pick up in April. It's getting much better. And now we start to see like a lot more offers. So it's definitely lower than 2021. It's around 70%, I would say. Yeah. But for the students who like in the real client project program, it will be much higher because, not every student is in the real client project. But when you work on the real client project, so the way we help the student is that when you enroll the program, you have 6 months to work on real client project. But because the job market is tough, the student can keep working on the project for a longer time. And it works out for some of the students because even if you're not getting a job, your experience with our consulting company is actually increasing. So you actually accumulate more months of experience, and that's why some students can get senior jobs. I guess that helps as well. But yeah, but that's the honest number here is 70%. Yeah. Not as great as before, but still, I think we're definitely leading our, other boot camps by a big margin. Yeah.
Right. It's 4 minutes past 10. I think it's the time to call it a day. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, sorry. There's one last question. How do we make our code look better on GitHub? I think I think I answered that. Okay, cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending this session. I hope you find this useful. I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you, Shara. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Adam.